Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Rabbi Kolakowski once again with another video. I really thank those who reached out to me and said they like the shorter videos better. I personally, I would like to make shorter videos. I just talk too much. So, excuse me. I'm trying to figure out how to make shorter videos. Like right now, I'm in a certain stretch of road where I don't get internet reception, don't get phone reception, which I think is a perfect time to make a video. And that's why I'm making a video now. I want to discuss two things from different worlds that I encountered this morning. You know, the Baal Shem Tov teaches, whatever you see every day really is a message from God. And you have to be attuned to understanding what that message is and how to bring it out. And I'm not saying that I have mastered this in any way. I'm just humbly bringing out what I feel I received today. So I ran into two interesting things this morning. One, I went to the mikveh this morning. I davened at home and then went to the mikveh afterwards, which it's not how you're supposed to do things, but just, you know, it's hard with the kids and everything, juggle with the minyan, everything, you know, it is what it is. So, on my way to work, dropped my son off at Cheder, at school. Yes, it's Sunday, he still goes to school. And then from there, I went to the mikveh, and now I'm on my way to work. The mikveh that I went to this morning is probably a little bit more of an extremist synagogue, I would say. It's a small synagogue in a home. You know, it's basically, I don't know who the rabbi is, I don't know much about it, just someone told me, yeah, this mikveh is open all day. You know, so that's why I started going there, and it's actually just down the block from the school, and it's a very, even though on the outside, to an outsider, it would seem like, well, what's the difference between this community and that community? But there are some subtle differences that make a big deal. And so while my son and my daughter attend the main schools in Kiryas Joel, and then my other kids, they go to school in Bloomingburg, so with the other rabbi. So here, this particular mikveh that I you know had time to go to comes from a totally different group, neither of those two, although it might be in certain ways closer to the Bloomingburg crowd, in certain ways, mostly because of a lot of political things, you know, but it's still independent of either of those. And it's more extreme than either of those in certain things, in my opinion, in my approach. And my personal approach is probably more similar to that of the main Rebbe from Kiryas Joel, at least in his public persona. I would say the Rebbe from Brooklyn, maybe personally, is a little bit more moderate, but he puts on a facade of being a little bit more right-wing than he is, whereas I think the Rebbe from Monroe, his older brother, puts on, he is who he is. He's not trying to pretend someone who he isn't as far as politically speaking and so forth. If anything, maybe his personal persona is a little bit more to the right than his public persona, I would say. If it's going to be something along those lines. Again, it's not really right to say one or the other. It's just, but then again, you have this other group, or these other groups, which are smaller and independent, that are much more extreme, for lack of a better term. I think that's the apt and accurate term, is that they are extreme. Although, as I pointed out several years ago in an article that I had published in the forward, that being said, for a long time, their Rebbe, for lack of a better term, was the Rebbetzin. And so therefore you see even the more extreme group can have a woman in a somewhat of a, not exactly a clergy role, but as a religious leader in a certain sense. There's a lot, it's more complicated than that. Anyway, when I went to the mikveh at this little shul, and it's a rundown mikveh and a rundown shul, and it just, a little place, but it's there, and it's right, like I said, it's right near the school, and it's convenient, and it's open all day, and it's warm. There's another one that's also from this group. Mikveh's a little nicer, but it's usually, I haven't been there in a while, but usually it's open all day, but it's usually freezing cold, although there's no chlorine in that one, and sometimes you get a headache from the chlorine. A lot of things. So, first world problems of the Hasidic Jew. So anyway, there was a sign there on the door calling people to protest. I don't know exactly what they were protesting, but what it seems is as follows. Not calling anybody by name, but mentioning a certain ultra-Orthodox group that is considered to be more moderate, certainly by the Satmar standards, is Agudas Yisrael. And in general, the relationship between Satmar and Agudas Yisrael has been an interesting one. And the difference between the American Agudas Yisrael and the Israeli Agudas Yisrael is certainly an aspect of the difference between the two. Officially, Satmar has nothing to do with Agudas Yisrael, and officially they see it as being too liberal, too accepting of Zionism. They're non-Zionist as opposed to anti-Zionist, although you do have certain anti-Zionist aspects of the organization. The fascinating thing about Agudas Yisrael is that the Hasidic members of Agudas Yisrael tend to be more pro-Zionist than the Litvisha, than the non-Hasidic parts of Agudas Yisrael. You tend to see more anti-Zionism, let's say, in Lakewood, although Rav Aaron Kotler Zatzal held that it's good to vote in Israel, and they did go to the Koisel, but it wasn't like extremely pro-Zionist. They would, and then even within the Litvish world, of course, there are also different approaches. Panovich, even within Panovich, you have different approaches. And you have all of these different aspects. In Panovich, they will put the Israeli flag up on the 5th of ER, as I think they do the Mir as well. I know in Or Sameach, where I learned, which considers themselves ideologically aligned with the Panovich and Mir and these places. They'll do the same thing, but they oppose the state to a certain extent, but they, as opposed to a lot of the Hasidic communities, some, and even within those, there are different approaches. Boston and Jerusalem Slonim and a few of the others are, and Karlin Stalin, are certainly going to be more Zionistic in a certain sense than even say Bells or Vishnitz, which to Satmar they're like, oh, these are, they're Tzionim, Frum of Tzionim, but the fact is like, Bells and Vishnitz have much less Zionism than Slonim, Ger, Boston. Again, Eilu did really cool time. I'm not saying one is better, one is worse. That's kind of the point what I'm bringing out here. So here you have a faction of Satmar that doesn't follow any of the Satmar Rebbes. They have their own rabbis, their own Dayanim, their own Rabbanim, who are independent. And the sign, again, that's one of the interesting things, like in Satmar, sometimes they'll avoid mentioning, it's almost like the ineffable name, it's like you won't mention who you're protesting against or what you're protesting against exactly. You kind of make it ambiguous, and so I only read it very quickly. I didn't study it really carefully. I'm in a rush, late for work. But they were saying, these wicked, tumina, impure agudists who want to count Torah study for secular school credit. Pretty much that's what they wanted to protest against. And what it seems like, again, I don't know exactly what's going on. What I'm assuming is going on is that there are rabbis from Aguda who are trying to help Satmar, and Askanim from Aguda who are, lay leaders and activists who are trying to figure out how can we follow the law but keep the status quo. As I've been discussing, in New York, there are the attacks right now on all parochial schools, and threats to shut down from all religions parochial schools for various reasons. And I really commend the Catholic Church for standing in unity with us with these issues. And I think it would be beautiful, if some of our Rebbes would go meet with Cardinal Dolan or something. I mean, I know the Jikova Rebbe was a chaplain like me, there's a picture of him together with Cardinal Dolan, but to see that type of totally traditional Stadlonis, I mean, the same thing, Rabbi Gluck going and meeting with the Pope, and he put on his spudik and everything when he went, and the Chassam Sofer would meet with the local Galochim, the Rabbi Yaakov Emden would, the Rabbi Ernest Neibeschutz would. This was a traditional way that our rabbis conducted themselves, classically, and I think it would be a big Kiddush Hashem, personally. And the Satmar Rebbe did meet with some Muslim businessmen and things, but so how do we approach this exactly, and what kind of things, and interestingly, how these things work out in America and so forth. But the fascinating thing to me is the diversity in thought in the Jewish world, in the Haredi world, in the Satmar world. The tremendous diversity in ideology and approach, and how to come to similar goals. I mean, the old types, their ideology is one, almost, you would think, the more extremists of pure faith. I remember once talking to one of the more extreme leaders of one of the more extreme groups. I'm not going to mention who it is. And he said something to me. He said, Lubavitch, they sold out for the sake of Kiruv, and Lakewood didn't. And although the truth is, Lubavitch, they also don't have English in their more English schools at all, even elementary level. And Lakewood, Rebbe Zatzal, he held true to his beliefs, and he would not give in to introduce secular studies into Lakewood. And Lubavitch, they were more flexible, and he said, and you see, this is what this very extremist, probably the most extreme, figure in America. I think people would know who I'm talking about. Someone from Muncie. I just happened to talk to him once, I just happened to have a conversation with him once. And, he goes around collecting money, and at least, I don't know if he's the most extreme, but the most prominent extreme. He goes and he has his thing, and he's an extremist. And his brother was a very great rabbi who just passed away in another country. People know what I'm talking about. And he said, Lakewood, they're matzliach, they're successful, they are pious, and Lubavitch, they have more troubles spiritually. And he said because of their willingness to compromise. That's how he understood it. My approach is being more of a libertarian is like, there's enough room in the Jewish world for tremendous diversity of thought. The question is, how much unity do we need? Are there certain things we need unity on? Obviously, Buddha, their whole thing has always been trying to find the unum in the pluribus, right? That Glenn Beck has been talking about. What are the things that we share in common? The obvious things that all Orthodox Jews share in common. We believe in one God. We believe Saturday is Shabbos. We believe, we believe that it's ideal to follow Shulchan Aruch. That's the... it doesn't matter if you're... Is that like... Huh? No. It doesn't matter if you're Hasidic, Litvish, modern. There are all these things that we have common ground on, and then there are certain things we don't have common ground on. And so Zionism is a major issue that many different schools have different views on. Secular education is a view that many different schools have different views on. And all of them, from the American standpoint of the Establishment Clause, religious freedom, they're all equally valid, because America has no right to tell us this type of religion is better than the other. And there is tremendous diversity in that. What's this even on? And so you have these 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever you want to say groups that, I'm saying within Satmar, that share so much in common, and yet there's so much diversity, right? These are the type of things, and then obviously there's going to be diversity in Aguda, and obviously there's going to be diversity among Orthodox Judaism in general. And the question is, how do we balance these issues? And it's complicated. But after seeing this, and my view is, personally, if the evangelical colleges can give a doctorate just for Bible study, why can't we? Why can't we give a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctorate degree in Talmudic study, as some yeshivas do, and the big thing, Samar Up did not want people to go from their school to college, that he's giving some tools to go to a secular college. But is it possible to say, well, from this, and I heard that a very prominent, very famous, and very controversial Askin asked the Satmar Rebbe from Monroe, why don't you give a degree? When you give Hira, why don't you call it a master's of Hebrew letter, whatever? And he said, I can't do it as long as there are people left who received Bilkalach from the Divrei Yol. Someone who received Shirayim from the old Rebbe, and it would say, when he's saying Bilkalach, meaning a challah, a whole roll, like he didn't take Yud Beis Chalas, so, but meaning that he received not just a bacher, not just a man, but like someone who was prominent in the community in the times when the old Rebbe was around. As long as they are around, he can't do such a thing, which would seem to indicate that maybe in the next generation we could. I don't know. I mean, the Satmar Rebbe from Monroe, he has grandsons who are willing to go speak at West Point, and even with a Magen David, at the podium at the West Point Jewish Chapel, and not to, this is Toma, I mean, there are certain things change. Is at some point, what are we talking about here? Anyway, and Baruch Moshe, he said, he had the Pekodin from the Fetter, and it's true. He had this that he has to preserve, that his uncle gave him, and that now his children are trying to follow in that path. But is it going to last forever? Who knows? We got to think of the here and now. We can't worry about the future as much. Anyway, but that being said, even though my view is, give a college degree, and maybe someone could get a job as a chaplain in a prison and this and that. Although New York is pretty cool with that as far as prison chaplaincy, but a federal prison chaplaincy, I don't know how Rabbi Ausch got to be a chaplain in MDC Brooklyn. Can anyone explain that to me? What kind of degree he had or whatever? Anyway, I don't think he even has a GED. I don't know, but anyway, this is how these things go. But in New York City, it's very easy. You just join New York Board of Rabbis if you're willing to do that, which a lot of former people won't do. But I know a lot of former people who will, Rebbes and so forth, who will, and Satmar Hasidim who will. So it is what it is. It's for Parnasa, it's for Kiruv, whatever it is. The thing that was the difference is here. I saw a clip of video of Ben Shapiro talking to a Catholic priest and asking him about issues in Catholic theology, and he couldn't give an answer of, well, this is what Vatican II said, and this is what we believe, and that's it. And we don't have such things, not since the Sanhedrin, and really, and there was never issues of theology that were clearly, there were. That's not exactly true. A lot of these issues, certainly, you have the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, How do we balance these things, but the thing is like, what I love about being Jewish is like, no, it doesn't, you don't, we'll say that the Reform, they're not Jewish because they're their theology is corrupt or is heretical, and they're going to say something like this to say, that not to have secular studies is not Jewish, and my answer is Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. I mean, certainly there's more room Jewishly to say thou shalt not study secular studies than you should support gay marriage or whatever. I mean, I don't see any justification. I know there are liberal Orthodox who do believe that. But the Reform ideology is much easier to say this is not Jewish than to say that the Haredi ideology is not Jewish. But it's tit for tat, more or less. That's what it comes down to. Measure for measure. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. All the best. Take care.